Okay, I think we're good to go. Well, good morning, everyone. We're here with Coffee and Conversation, and this morning we have Mr. Lawrence Medina from Rio Grande ATP. Welcome to our morning Coffee and Conversation. Mr. Medina, how are you?
Good, good. Buenos dias, de Dios, as we say here in northern New Mexico. Thank you for the invitation to have visit with you and have some coffee.
Yeah, good morning. So I wanted to bring you on this morning just so that you can kind of give us maybe a little overview of some of the services and the things that Rio Grande are doing in our area.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And again, Lawrence Medina, I'm the executive director for Rio Grande Alcoholism Treatment Program. Aquí in Taos, we have an intensive outpatient for substance abuse treatment. And also we have another program in Las Vegas, New Mexico, an intensive outpatient. Rio Grande has been serving El Norte since April of 1978. So 42 years serving the North. It originated out of Embudo, and a lot of people know, the gente know that, back in the day, there was that residential treatment center there in Embudo for many years. It closed back in 2007, but we kept our intensive outpatients going again here in Taos in Las Vegas. Of course, now during the pandemic crisis, we been providing individual counseling and group sessions via telephonically and telehealth. And it's kind of surprising that our caseloads have gone up over 25% during this pandemic crisis. We're seeing more people reaching out, and which we're happy to see, that they're reaching out. These are very difficult times in terms of people, the isolation, and then of course substance abuse. We have a problem with substance abuse in northern New Mexico, and it's harder in rural and frontier areas, right? Because of the lack of services. And Rio Grande works diligently to, if somebody comes in and they're needing, intensive outpatient, we can do that. But if they need what we call a higher level of care, such as detoxification, residential or transitional living, right before the pandemic, we started a central intake, an adult central intake that people could call, and they're able to, you know, um, we do a brief assessment by phone, and then seeing what level of care, if it's either at the local level or do we need to help case, provide case management into detox, such as OI recovery and Alcalde, Santa Fe recovery or Turquoise Lodge are kind of the top three more that we refer to. And that also it's detox or residential treatment services. We also have a grief and loss support, retreats for our clients. It's a collaboration with my colleague Ted Wired and Golden Willow Retreat. And also Ted Wired is also our clinical director, which both of us run, Golden Willow Counseling. But we see this multicultural grief and loss retreat that we have uh, is very beneficial. We see in addiction, people suffering a lot of it. We see a lot of unresolved, grief and loss, a lot of resolved trauma. So we're very grateful, and just to mention, I'm in long-term recovery. I'm a former client of Rio Grande. And being in long-term recovery, what that means to me is that I haven't had a drink or a drug in over 29 years. And I was in Embudo Residential Treatment Center at Rio Grande in 1991. And also I was a client of Tri-County, at the detox center, and then my aftercare. So I'm a product of the public system, the one that I work in. And I'm really grateful that, to state that recovery's alive and well aquí en el norte.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you and congratulations. That's, it's people, I mean, you got to be proud of completing as many years as you have, but I'm sure it's every day it's a a continued process to stay in that recovery. I think a lot of people miss we do have to have that continuous everyday talk with ourselves, so to speak, to make sure we're continuing on that path. Just real quick, I don't know if you guys, do you offer any services to adolescents or kids who may be suffering with substance use?
We don't. Rio Grande is an adult program for 18 years and above. And, we do make a lot of referrals to Taos Behavioral Health. And also Valle de Sol, I believe, takes younger individuals under 18. And so we have a good collaboration with, Taos Behavioral Health and Valle de Sol. And we're seeing, younger ages that the need, for interventions, right? And having difficulties homes. I know Dream Tree provides the housing and a great program as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was just curious because I guess I can reach out to Taos Behavioral and see what they may be seeing as far as our younger generations. We working in the prevention field, we want to make sure that we're supporting what they may be needing as well, and trying to get them before they get into the adult years where they could be facing some charges or greater addictions.
Yes. Yeah, and this is generational. When you see people coming in that their grandfather, or grandparents had addiction or substance abuse issues, and then their kids and then their kids, and it's seen that, this disease, alcoholism and drug addiction is a disease. It's not a moral issue. We are battling, other things with stigma, that there's people in high positions that really think that they could be helping the gente, but they think having a substance abuse problem is a weakness, that it takes willpower, and scientifically it's shown that it's a disease and it needs to be treated just like with somebody with diabetes and some other illness. And so just to share a little bit about some of my local, state, and national involvements, and that kind of brings kind of, so at the local level, I had the privilege to be the co-founder for Recovery Communities, a recovery community organization called Recovery Friendly Taos. We're known in the past for doing a recovery walk in the plaza. We wanted to heighten awareness that recovery is alive and well, and kind of fighting the stigma, that the stigma could prevent people from getting help. It's difficult for them to ask for help.
Right.
So Recovery Friendly Taos, currently is being led by Steve Fullendorf. And, we're, and also we started right before the pandemic, a Taos Behavioral Health Consortium. And that's with all the major behavioral health providers. We're still in the forming stage. Because of the pandemic, it kind of slowed us down, but we're really grateful. We received a grant by the Lohr Foundation, thanks to our buddy Jake Caldwell, that supported us on this. He's seen the vision of this consortium that we felt that we needed a voice. So at the local level, we're really working since the closing of the detox in Tri-County to kind of pick up the pieces, right? We had a very bad experience as a community with Tri-County closing. It hurt a lot of people, even employees were impacted by that. At the state level, I sit on a committee for this federal money. It's called the Substance Abuse Block Grant money from SAMSA. I'm the chairperson for this independent peer review committee, where we go visit other providers and visit with them and see what they're doing. And it's a really good committee at the state level through the Behavioral Health Service Division that I get to represent the Norte. Nationally, I sit on the SAMSA, that's the Substance Abuse Administration committee with the federal government. I sit on the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment on the National Council, and I'm going on my 5th year. I'll finish up in May. And that's been awesome, to when the opiate crisis hit and seeing SAMSA jump on that, I have had and have access to a lot of, best practices, information. I believe, there's some bills that passed of Congress that has been very helpful,
Mhm.
to this opiate. And for example, the hospital is going to be launching a SOAR program that's related to federal money to address the opiate addiction. And so SAMHSA has been a really great experience to represent New Mexico. And then this past December, I became a board member of Faces and Voices of Recovery out of Washington, D.C. They're a 20-year-old organization, recovery community organizations that they have ARCO, that they provide assistance, technical assistance for like a recovery-friendly house. We're a chartered member. They work on nationally for policy for change, for supporting more rehabilitation services, and also the stigma, fighting the stigma. And what are we doing as a community to promote our community to be more friendly?
Right. Yeah. And that's amazing that you're a part of all of these organizations. I am pretty familiar with all of them, as I've been in the behavioral health field for so long. But SAMSA was also, they took care of our funding for several years. We just recently moved over to the CDC, so we utilized SAMSA as a big resource for us. So anyone who's watching, if you go over to the SAMSA website, there's also resources for kids and adolescents. So there's some support there for the different types of substances that kids may get involved in. And like you said, the opioid crisis, they just really stepped on the pedal with that. And I was glad to be a part of a lot of the trainings that they did offer when we were under them, and going to our conventions, they were able to speak to us on a lot of the opioid crisis. So I gained a lot of knowledge with that. Unfortunately, we're focusing on alcohol and vaping because that's where our kids are at right now, and we're trying to meet them there. But I am part of the prescription work group with Taos Alive, so I get to work with them on some of the things that are happening up here in the north as well. So when you mentioned the hospital, I was aware of the program that they're getting ready to launch and the peer support that's supposed to be coming along with that, which I think is really important in the work that we're doing, especially with people who are entering recovery.
Yes, awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Taos County, we've suffered with losses. And, another thing as we do is a lot of us provider are advocating at the state level to prevent that from happening. It started when Team Builders closed, which was a big hit. They had established and were maintaining continuity of care for adolescents. And it's just a shame that the politics continue to impact us, not only as a community, but as individuals, as families are impacted by bad decisions, political. And it goes always back to this stigma that, we cannot incarcerate our way into improving the crime, the recidivism, and poverty. Just say no, that, or the war on drugs, that was a political, and statistics show that it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm always talking to elected officials and stakeholders, that how do they support behavioral health services?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just the gross receipt taxes that they're worried about, is that, we need proper representation of the gente here in Taos County. And a good example is that there's over 50% of Taoseños are on some sort of public assistance. That's a fact.
Yeah.
Medicaid is way up there, right? Just probably close to 50%. So I really ask and I cultivate relationships with our elected official to better represent these demographics. And with that, there's punitive that, they get in trouble, lock them up, and throw away the key. Well, what are we doing on the rehabilitation side, right? That we need to promote rehabilitation at all levels, for pregnant, prenatal, pregnant mothers. We're seeing, children being born addicted. What are we doing for interventions, for the young kids that are experiencing and witnessing violence and the impact that that has on young, toddlers, even young
Right.
elementary. And then it goes all the way up to, middle school and high school that we're seeing, and you're seeing young kids are starting at a young age. I started drinking at the age of 12, and they're starting a lot younger.
Right. We just had our retreat last Friday, and that was one of the things that we talked about. We discussed how kids who use substances before the age of by the age of 15 are more likely to develop addictive behaviors when they're adults. And then what we're seeing is that they are as young as 13 and some even younger. So yeah, it is really it is an issue. We do need to start looking at that, and also tapping into our early development programs that we have here in the northern area to reach out to parents as well as the kids, because I read somewhere that early development, childhood development, helps with prevention in the long run as well. So we're going to start working with our community members to try to start reaching out to those programs and those parents as well. And Lawrence, when you talked about, I don't think mental health should be political at all. I think it should be a human right that we all get. And I was part of Team Builders when that all came crumbling down, and it really did. It was detrimental. It was detrimental to our clients. It was detrimental to us as staff people. It was one of the greatest places I've worked, and it took me a long time to find employment that I'm passionate about and love after all of that happened. And I'm grateful to be in the position that I'm in right now, but it's taken a lot of rebuilding in our community to start putting the pieces back together. And I don't even know if we're even healed yet from that crisis that happened in 2013, 7 years already. So
Yeah, and we're not, we're still picking up the pieces, that if you look at our continuum of care, we lost, right? We lost services. And, when we look at from the adult standpoint, we look at, we don't have a detox center, we don't have residential, we don't have transitional living. And then when you get into, deeper mental health, Valle de Sol took it over, great organization. Terry Barsano, clinical director, awesome local professional. They're doing their best, but it's not the same as it was.
right.
And you look at, as you're saying about, the working with the parents. In the last, during this pandemic, we've had some suicides. We've had people die just recently. That's the hardest part of working in substance abuse treatment, is seeing when your vecino dies of cirrhosis, when mama dies, when daddy dies, grandpa dies. And not to say all the other risks that they're putting due to the pandemic, that they're engaging in high risk behavior. So therefore they're susceptible even, for contacting COVID. But it's really heartbreaking, to get a call to say, just recently it was somebody been in and out of our program and just couldn't get it, and it breaks our heart. And, you look at Tau statistics, and this is where we try to raise awareness, even with young people, about, informing them of the dangers of alcohol and drugs, And there's two big things for young people that I see that's important. What are young people doing to develop better coping skills? To realize, to live life on life's terms. What coping skills? And there's so much help out there. Valle de Sol, Taos Behavioral Health, there's counselors, to get that support for dealing with coping, dealing with life on life's terms is not easy, especially during a pandemic. You
Yeah.
know, kids are staying home. And the other one is life skills, right? What are they doing to prepare themselves for their independence? Because here's the statistics as of the late 2018 from the Department of Health, that out of 33 counties, Taos, in a lot of cases, in the top 5, if not top 10 worst of deaths. Alcohol deaths, you know, back as of the end of 2018, we were 7th out of 33 counties. Chronic disease deaths, we were 6th. And I think it's gotten worse. You know, liver disease, we're 10th. Alcohol injuries, 8th. Motor vehicle crashes, 11th. Drug overdose deaths, 13th. And then this is interesting because of the chronic relapsing related to opiate overdoses related to emergency room visits, 2nd.
Right.
You know, and this is the sad one that we're seeing. Suicide deaths was 4. I think it's gone up since 2018, but it was 4th. You know, we're seeing a lot of, you know, what we're calling co-occurring mental health, substance abuse and mental health, you know,
Right.
that there's untreated issues, you know, acute depression or anxiety, and it goes in and it just escalates into something worse, that we're 5th. And not to say like drinking and driving in the past 30 days, we were 2nd. So this is a public safety issue. This is a public health issue that we're dealing with. And again, the opiate program problem has brought to us that almost 90+% of everybody in Taos County either have been directly affected by it, or they know somebody or have a family member.
Yep.
And this is no longer the family secret. You know, substance abuse, sometimes we looked at it like a form of incest. Nobody wants to talk about it. And we do need to talk about the problem, but not only the problem, but what solutions do we have?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And you're talking about statistics there. And, you know, we recently got our data back from our YRRS survey, which is the Youth Risk and Resilience Survey that we conduct every 2 years. And our numbers are skyrocketed. We expected to see like at least a 2% decrease. We saw a 20% increase in alcohol and in vaping. Of course, those are the two that we were looking, but substances across the board were between 15 and 20% higher, and that's in Cuesta alone. So we are looking at where, you know, Taos County is up there, but Cuesta is even higher than what the Taos County average is. So we do have a real problem on our hands, and we're just trying to, like you say, wake up the gente. Like this isn't the family secret that we keep a secret anymore. It's the dirty secret that we need to be airing out and saying, you know what, our people need help, and we need to get you guys involved to make the change. And that's what we're kind of screaming over here at Vida del Norte, like, listen to us. So
That's, you know, and a lot of, you know, and you bring up a good point about family supports. You know, I remember a counselor told me many years ago that, you know, the enabling of an alcoholic addict, we call it mijito and mijita syndrome. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That, and it's no disrespect, because a mother and parents love their child by no means, but the enabling is prolonging that addiction. And it's very important that the familia members get help. There's therapists and counselors out there to help you, because you're taking a hit. It's very painful to see your loved one, you know, destroying his or her life.
Mhm.
And the family could get sick as well. So there's also that assistance for therapists, you know, with our providers that can get that support. And then also, how do I deal with my alcoholic son or daughter? How can I do interventions? You know, and also sometimes, how do I administer tough love?
Yeah.
You know, but this, you know, especially under the, you know, I was on a show a couple of years ago about Latinos in America, and the problem and the disparities. And one of the thing is that our cultura is very rich. We have very rich cultura, very deep roots aquí in el norte. My bloodline, goes back to the 1600s aquí en el norte. Mi familia viene de Mora, my family comes from Mora originally, but we look at our cultura that we're losing our cultura, we're losing our land, we're losing our water, and that's an identity crisis that we're faced with. And it's not about viva la raza, it's about knowing who I am, knowing
Right.
my authentic self, that mind, body, and spirit. And I really share about people getting they come in, getting help to start that healing and reconciliation process.
Yeah, and I agree. I've had a couple of interviews with some people who are in recovery, and one of the things that they've mentioned before is connecting back to those roots. So it is important for us as people, but also for the recovery process, because I think when you're in that state, you end up losing your identity. You lose your family members. You burn bridges. You really end up not knowing who you are. By the time you reach that point where you're like, I need to stop, like, and then you have to figure out who you are again. And it's a rebirth. It's a rebirthing process. And
It is, in my recovery, journey, when I came in at the age of 22, is that I was broken, and how those coping skills that I lacked, that I chose alcohol and drugs to self-medicate. And going back to young people, one of the saddest things that a young person could ever deal with, even as an adolescent, toddler, to the point where when they're developing. Um, but can you imagine there's a 10-year-old waking up at 3 a.m, has no coping skills, has witnessed violence due to mom and dad or whoever's under the influence of drug and alcohol, and they have nobody to turn to.
Mhm.
That's one of the worst feelings that a young person can feel, and even an adult, that there's that hopelessness. And no kid should ever have to feel that there's no help and they have nobody to turn to.
Right.
And that is deep. And the more we talk about the substance abuse problem, but let's take it down to the individuals to say, it's not like, mom, if you knew you were hurting your child, why would you just quit? Well, addiction is a lot bigger than that. Addiction is out of control, and the addiction, just it takes over.
Yeah.
But and it saddens me that I see, and you hear of children that, and then it comes out, they start getting in trouble, and there you go. Then they pick up their first drink or drug, and then that cycle starts all over again.
Right. And exactly what you just said. Almost everything that you're saying right now is a little bit about what we talked about in our retreat on Friday. And you hit it right on the head there when you talked about the coping mechanisms and parents. And I think that's a question that a lot of people ask, including our own families, like I know, I have a niece who's in addiction, and she's got 2 children right now. And that's one of the things that I know my family goes around with a lot, is like, if she loves her kids enough, why can't she quit? Well, because it's already part of her genetic makeup. It's probably been a part of her genetic makeup since she was born. And it's difficult for her. And I know that, but it's hard to also educate my family around it, and teach them the skills to not enable and not have that mijita syndrome as well. But we also were talking about those coping skills. And even though a parent may be in this addictive state, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't love their children or they don't care for their family members. So how do we start educating our parents so that they can teach their kids those coping skills and life skills for that matter. So I guess that's a challenge that we have here, in our communities, and that's one of the questions that I'm going to start be posing to some of our mental health providers, but also challenging our families. Like, what one of our coalition members talked about how when she was a kid, and even though her mom had her struggles, she still told her, like, you're better than this. You're better than me. I want you to do better. I want you to have a better life. And she said that those words for her were, they just really created something different in her mind. And she's doing really well, and she's a pastor, and raising her family to the best ability that she can. And she said that those words really made that difference for her. And it just really resonated with us in thinking about how are we going to start helping our parents who may be in active addiction, or maybe aren't even in addiction, but don't know how to teach their kids those coping skills. So you hit it right there, and that's going to be one of the questions that I'll be posing to a lot of our service providers, and like I said, our families. We're really trying to reach our parents right now, and our within our kids, within our community, and really trying to get some things going here with that.
Yes, yes, and we say in recovery, there's many pathways to recovery, not one pathway fits all. And we look at it in substance abuse treatment that when there's an intervention due to uh, kind of an early intervention, meaning that somebody starts having a problem and they start to address it sooner than later, of course that's good. And others will get a DWI. Usually, we see that majority of our clients are court mandated. And this is just the average gente, good people. Buena gente, come from good familias. And, they get in trouble. That's others sometimes really gets their attention, you know, and some, that get to the extreme. Rio Grande, we run a drug court in Las Vegas. So we work with habitual offenders, chronic alcoholic addicts. So we see, and they're not violent offenders, not sex offenders. They're just chronic alcoholic addicts. And those we really work under our intensive outpatient treatment, to intervene, because they say, so we'll ask somebody, say, when do you know when you hit your bottom?
Right.
Say, oh, when I went to jail, when I went to prison, or I didn't die or almost die. Say, no. When you hit your bottom is when you quit digging, and so, the first big challenge for anybody is asking for help, and then knowing that there's many pathways to recovery. Some people will turn to their church. I know, I'm Catholic, and I'm very grateful for my priest, Father Daniel Gutierrez, aquí in Taos. Just grateful for that spiritual advice and my roots of my familia of Christianity, that some people really go back to their culture and their religion. Others will take advantage of 12-step groups, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. Families go to Al-Anon to get the support. Al-Anon is for, spouses or loved ones who are affected. They don't have a drinking problem, but they're affected by addiction. There's, fitness. So there's many pathways. And, the one thing that I sobered up here in Taos in 1991, and I think we have something very sacred, and that's the Taos Mountain. And I even like my shirt here, the Taos Mountain, because when I was a newcomer and I was new in recovery, I could always look at the mountain and it always centered me. And that was, we're very blessed to live in our tierra that's very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful land. The Rio Grande, the montes, the trails. I love skiing as well. So I get, we live in a place of that is very accommodating for healing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And healing in different ways. You mentioned grief and loss. I think we've all, and grief doesn't have to just be losing someone. It could be losing I mean, yourself, a job, you know, anything in that way. I remember doing grief and loss seminar with Larry and Mr. Cardenas
Yes.
as I was getting my, you know, trying to get my accreditation so I could get my LSAA, and I loved the workshop. I did it twice because I had to skip out early on one, but both times I found things that I could work on and that I needed to work on in both of those seminars, and they were totally different from each other. And it really helped with this question that I had when I was doing my practicum in my clinicals with one of the professors at Adams State, and every time I talked about my dad and the alcohol addiction, I talked of alcohol as being a monster and this really dark energy, and I never really you know, I never really had put the two together until I got to those grief and loss seminars, and that was already almost 3 years later. So I think continuing to do your own work is really important in any process of mental health, but also in recovery. You know, I think recovery, I think we have to recover from our childhoods sometimes, and you know, having to do that work with my dad who suffered from, you know, alcoholism. I'm glad that he and I were able to make our peace with each other before he passed away. But it took a lot of work on my end because he didn't do any work, but I did a lot of work, and it really did help me to forgive him and to deal with him, because I had to deal with him. I was his only child, and you know, having to deal with him on a regular basis when he was in those places was really hard. So I had to really learn who I was in that part of it, and it really did bring a lot of healing in those grief and loss seminars. And of course, you know, I've attended the ones with Ted as well. So
Yes, it's one of the things with grief and loss, and we were very blessed for many years, and Ed Cardenas has retired, a licensed independent social worker, and he had the multicultural bilingual grief and loss. Him and Larry Herrera, our counselor at ADAC, and then Ted has taken over those since then. But when you see somebody that has been plugged up for years and drinking and drugging, and as you experience, not necessarily you having any issue with alcohol and drugs, but that release, and to see the tears come out and they're just letting it pour out, man, it brings tears to my eyes.
yeah.
To see somebody release that, and we're very fortunate, that we mix that grief and loss, and you get into what they call trauma informed, and what trauma informed that we're really moving towards, that we don't, when they come to us, we don't want to re-traumatize them by being old counseling style was more confrontational, but we want to be, we are more trauma informed. We got some great counselors, Larry Herrera still with us, Tisha Martinez, a social worker, awesome, has a really awesome background herself and how she's turned her life around, awesome therapist, Carol Montoya, local Tausenia as well, Celia Jones is out of Dixon. And then we're also love that we have Francina Naya. So we're very blessed with our therapists, Aki and Taos, that those what make the program is our therapists and our counselors, and I commend you for your healing. You're a good example that we all need to be example to others, that it's okay, to ask for help. We have to walk through that healing, I think one of the beautiful sayings of a dicho that we have here in the Norte, that my uncle and my mentor, Facundo Valdez passed away. May he rest in peace. But they named the School of Social Work after him at Highlands University in Las Vegas. He was the executive director when I was a patient there in Rio Grande in the early 90s. And then on semi-retirement, he worked as our clinical supervisor right before he passed away. He was working for Rio Grande. But there's a dicho that we say, and I love our dichos, and the older I get, I cherish them more because they're good reminders. And the elders talk about una vida buena y sana, living a good and healthful life. una vida buena y sana. And then when we get to celebrate, when we're healing, y alegre, right? That now that we get to that point, that there is hope, and we can get to that point of celebration and about the recovery that we're in, that it's not just all bad, is that and we see for myself and others in recovery that it's beautiful. And we could appreciate life better, appreciate our cultura, our family, and the ones that are still out there, our friends and family. We get to be the example for them. We can't fix them or save them, but I have I can be an example by not drinking and drugging one day, and living la vida buena y sana.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have a firm belief that we heal through our stories. The more we tell our stories, the more we heal. And my husband asked me one time, because I would speak about my trauma. I had some sexual trauma when I was young, and I talk about it pretty openly. And he asked me one time, he said, how are you able to do that? Like, you just spill it to whoever will listen. And I told him, because every time I talk about it, it becomes something that's no longer a part of me. I'm able to release it and bring light to it. TED talks a lot about bringing light to the darkness, and so every time I would speak about it, I'd bring light to it. And now it doesn't faze me. I don't cry anymore when I talk about it. I don't get that heartache that I used to feel. And so I was able to release it. And it was that big release off of my shoulders, so to speak, that was weighing me down for so long. And when I was able to finally talk about it and talk about it freely, then I was no longer its captive. So
Yes, no, and that's awesome, right? Yeah, this is it. You know, I, you, you look at addiction. I look at addiction. And being in recovery too. It's not just seeing the tristeza or always hearing la gente, or como dice la gente, cantando la tristeza all the time, singing the sad song all the time, drunk and sober, right? Because somebody can be sober, but if they're not treating it, that's when they get into what people talk about dry drunk. They're angry, they're really difficult to be. And therefore also, there's treatment to help them deal with that. But we no longer need a cantar the tristeza. We could surround ourselves with others that are in recovery. We share that a lot with our clients, that we're products of our environment. And if I'm around the gutter all the time and negativity and all, I'm a product. I am what I eat, and I need to, make those changes, changing playgrounds and playmates and all that to better living, and because one of the things with addiction that I've seen is what we call normalized dysfunction, right? Normalized dysfunction, that I'm living in this nasty dark hole for all my life, and it's normal. This is normal, and when you tell somebody, hey, the way you're living is not normal, some people really freak out. Wow, really? There's something else out there? There's something better? And thank God there is, right? That we can break that chain of dysfunction,
right.
and that and break that normalized dysfunction to start the healing.
Yes, and we do, and we need to also start educating our people that it's okay to be in that place. It's okay to be there. You don't have to go back to that spot. You don't have to worry about what people are going to say about you. I know that I've had lots and lots of family members, close family members, that, oh, you think you're better than everybody now. Oh, you think you're good, you're better than me. And I have to go back and say, no, I don't think I'm better than you, but I choose to live a better life than what I was. And it doesn't, and I always put it in that context, because it's not about you, it's about me. And I've had to say that several times to one of my family members, and hopefully they finally get it.
Yeah,
But
a lot of people, especially the raza, we have pride. And us men, I suffered from machismo, and that was going to kill me, because my pride and my machismo, it just would not allow me to ask for help and to be vulnerable. Even human beings, that recovery is teaching us that it's okay to be vulnerable, but we need to be in a safe place to be vulnerable. And like you said, able to share and let it pour out, but the things about pride, other big factors, especially amongst the Hispanos, is codependency, way over dependent. And it's just in our field, this is what we address. I'm not here to judge or point the finger to anybody, but these are, issues, clinical issues of codependency, over dependency on people, places, and things in order to make me okay, And I think you said it's not about you, it's about me. And that's about that independence with ourselves, with a higher power, that we have that independence and we're not so over dependent or also worried about what other people think about me now that I'm not drinking and drugging.
Right.
That I don't need a fear. I have that fear of what other people think about me. What are they going to think now? My camaradas are not going to be over there. Ora se crea más chingón, ora, it's like, you know what? I'm like you. We have purpose today in our recovery, right? It gives us purpose, to our family, to our communities, to ourselves.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you. I kept you on a little longer than I had anticipated, but I appreciate you coming on and talking this morning. And you guys are doing great work. I've watched Rio Grande grow over the years and hit their bumps as well. But you guys are staying strong, and we appreciate everything that you do for our community. I'm glad you brought up Steve. I've asked him to be on Coffee and Conversation as well. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, he'll be on to talk a little bit about your ventures there.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few announcements. So it's not official, but I guess it is now. Rio Grande has moved in and purchased the old Tri-County building at 105 Paseo de Cañon West. So we got a new home, beautiful, beautiful location on the south side behind Lottaburger. We're also working on a detox center. Go to riograndeatp.org, and we're looking for donations for the detox center. We're shooting for a 16-bed. Of course, the pandemic has slowed us down, but we're still moving towards a 16-bed detox center. So we got some great things going on, and I want to just thank my staff, my teammates. We got a really good team of Rio Grande, both in Taos and Las Vegas. Of course, our partnership with Ted and Golden Willow Counseling, Golden Willow Retreat, we're very fortunate. So just any questions, they could also call our office directly, 737-5533, or go to our website. So muchísimas gracias, Maria. I really appreciate the invitation and our visit this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lawrence. I appreciate you coming on, and you have a blessed day and the week.
Same to you. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, bye-bye.